What is up, guys? So today we have the release of the Coiled Captors DLC, the first DLC for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And as soon as I get home, I am not home at the moment. I just got off work, but I did want to cover a hotfix video for you guys before I got home, because I know as soon as I get home, I'm going to be jumping on the game and trying to make content for Coiled Captors. Now, there is some things that are really cool that they actually worked on, and I'm actually happy they did the way they did with the latest hotfix. So let's go down here. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands Notes version 1.0.2.0a. Read the latest update hotfix notes for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Okay, it's basically saying, deliver updates to players, one weekly changes that will cover smaller adjustments, and the others will be downloadable updates. And then it tells you the time, which is always 9:30 a.m. PT on April 21st. This is when this is going live, which is today. They do this with everyone. So, season pass and various bug fixes and performance improvements. Vesper is awaiting the audience of Fate Makers. Find her in the Dreamvale Overlook. In addition to this support, some changes have been made that we wanted to give special mention to based on feedback from the community. And this is where it gets really cool, because a lot of you guys had a tough time with certain things. I was okay with it, but there is some things that the quality of life changes, I feel like. Lucky dice are now tracked per profile instead of per character. Players will need to load and save their Fate Maker to apply the progression to their profile if created before this update. Fate Makers can now rename their pets and character at Quick Change Station. Now, rename their pets. I didn't know you could name your pets initially, and that's really cool. So that is pretty dope. I didn't even know you could, but maybe they're just letting us do it now. I don't know. I didn't see any pet name type of thing, so that is really cool. Chaos tiers can now go up to level 35. Holy shit. Okay. Chaos tiers can now go up to level 35. Primordial gear will now appear starting at Chaos tier 35. That explains a lot of things. I have a bunch of modded gear, and a lot of this stuff has different names. I have Ascended gear, and I have Primordial gear. That is insane. So this is stuff in-game. Enemy waves in Chaos Chamber's Endless Dungeon have been allowed to start sooner to give Fate Makers more targets at once. Moon Orb currency has been adjusted. Fate Makers may very quickly able to reroll enchantments to the point that the cost would be more than the maximum Moon Orbs they could hold. The grind for Moon Orbs was also slower than intended, as the best way to get them was to farm bosses in the Chaos Chamber. The Moon Orbs that a Fate Maker can hold has increased from 4,000 to 16,000, which is really cool, because it gets to a point where you can't spend, you can't buy like after the 10th one, because it costs more than than what you can hold. Single Moon Orb drops are now worth 20 instead of 10. Moon Orb stacks are worth 80 instead of 40. Due to these changes, Moon Orb stacks are now slightly less likely to drop versus single orbs. The final chest in Chaos Chamber's Endless Dungeon will now drop 14 Moon Orb stacks. Reroll cost now accounts for the rarity of the gear, with legendaries being more expensive to reroll. The cost to reroll will stop increasing after 4,000 Moon Orbs, allowing Fate Makers to continuously reroll their gear. Fixed various reported rare crashes include those related to loading into or out of Wargtooth Shallows while in co-op, occasionally using spells during Enter Pyramid, selecting Quick to Title screen after accepting a co-op request, occasionally looking for a player that is not found in a shift, alt-tabbing out of the enchantment rerolling menu, missing replicated information, console Torg's title card being too powerful for split-screen co-op, console starting in-game cinematics during split-screen co-op, long play sessions, Entering a random encounter while in multiplayer. Address the following reported concerns. Some players could not connect to the game without linking accounts. Occasionally, the intro would not play, and Fate Makers were left at the table alone. Leaving a run in Chaos Chamber and starting a featured run could sometimes cause a blocker. Fate Makers would occasionally run into a blocker when transitioning during Enter the Gods well. The badass enemy during Knife to Meet You would sometimes be too scared to spawn, and Fate Makers could not progress. Fate Makers could sometimes become stuck in a cutscene started while in a lobby menus. Quitting from the pause menu would sometimes create an extra invalid save game. Loot Luck UI would sometimes appear to fluctuate inconsistently when Fate Makers joined and left a co-op session repeatedly. Luck would sometimes appear to not update when doing activities to increase it. This was only a visual bug. Shrine buffs would occasionally not persist after save load. Backpack would occasionally show the wrong icons for gear or not show icons or information entirely. Party members, including companions, would not reliably show health and occasionally appear dead on the UI when they were not. And this actually happened to me a lot. I on the left of my screen, I just see everyone dead half the time. But I know they're not. But they're always fucking dead every time I look. Mission logs and active quests would occasionally disappear. Health and wards would occasionally appear to not change after switching to solo play from split screen. Myth rank didn't have an obvious indicator of where points could be added. The myth rank menu would now open in the category that the player can level up. Rune puzzle timers would not stop correctly for all Fate Makers in co-op. Dragon Lord would be shown as being in the immune state when he wasn't. Archer skeletons and zombies were occasionally using invisible bows to attack in multiplayer. Death Rattler's projectile attacks would occasionally not show FX for all co-op players. Some players would not see Berserker or Clawbringer action skill weapons during co-op. Spore Warden's Blizzard action skill and Greyborn's Dire Sacrifice action skill would be unable to deal critical hits. The UI would occasionally not update after Graveborn would spec into Faithful Thralls. Graveborn's Demi-Lich would incorrectly bless some Fate Makers with invulnerability at 1 health. Spell Shot Double Knot passive ability would not deal the correct amount of bonus damage. Stabomancer's Ghost Blade was not properly updating damage when a melee weapon was unequipped. Miasmatic enchantment for Stabomancer would not deal the proper damage per nova. Bread Slicer has too many particle effects that reduce performance. We have decreased the fire rate but increased the weapon's damage to keep the DPS the same. Mistral of the Ghoul was carrying AMP effects over to other equipped weapons unintentionally. Weapons would fire in the wrong mode after switching weapons and quickly switching gun firing modes. Fate Makers were occasionally unable to use Skulldugger weapons if dropped during cooldown animation. Heat Gauge would not appear on manual transmission assault rifle, making it hard to see when to shift gears. Buffmeister would calculate bonus damage incorrectly while equipped as Spell Shot secondary spell. The Word Weaver ensnaring eruption spell is causing reduced performance for players as a result of the instability. We have pulled it from the drop pools. Okay, Weird Weaver arc turn, Weird Weaver dancing arc turn, and Weird Weaver Cloudburst arc turn can no longer roll with +1 projectile. This does not affect existing copies of the spell. The extra projectile mod never functioned with these spells to begin with. Weird Weaver Bonding arc turn can now roll with an extra projectile mod. This does not affect existing copies of the spell. Throwing a throwable hole into a singularity would not properly increase the damage. Spells would continue to cast while the game was paused. Arc and spells were unintentionally recharging action action skills when an action skill cooldown item was equipped. Switching between turtle wards would cause a visual bug where it appeared that the Fate Maker would return their base health. Action skill active enchantments would continue to persist for an additional period of time after activating. Gear would occasionally drop above the maximum player level. Some gear would continue to appear locked once a player reached the level to equip. Some Fate Makers would be unable to equip a ring after completing Hard Day's Night if one was in their backpack. Fate Makers would experience temporary issues in Overworld after playing co-op if a player declined to fast forward. So the Save Your Soul prompt would appear in the Overworld if a player took enough damage before transitioning in co-op play. Certain Overworld characters would sometimes not spawn. No obvious feedback for not being able to use the ping or photo mode options in Overworld. We added a lock icon to those options in the radial wheel. Puddles of water were becoming too spicy when being shot by an elemental weapon with the relevant modifier. So electric and yeah. That's kind of funny. Only one sacred ground was present in Chaos Chamber's Endless Dungeon with the relevant side objective. Fate Makers should now see two. I think somebody just crashed a car. Melee bonus objectives in the Chaos Chamber Endless Dungeons would occasionally persist into the next room. Fate Makers were able to repeat Chaos Trial level 20, which was not intended. Oh yeah, you... Really? You can't repeat it? Wow, I thought that was just intended. Okay, occasionally, Queen Bloodstallion would continue to stand around if a Fate Maker reconnected to the game after her buff was claimed. The Desert Aspect boss would appear invisible or as a purple light to Fate Makers joining a game mid-fight. Chaos Chamber was showing as the only matchmaking option in the social menu. Fate Makers would quit Chaos Chamber from the menu while in multiplayer. We added a countdown timer for all players. A visual bug was causing Chaos Chamber blessings and curses to appear duplicated in the UI. Travel countdowns would not consistently display for all Fate Makers in Chaos Chamber. Countdown timer would not appear during item trading. Fate Makers in co-op were occasionally unable to sell all junk twice in a row at the Mystical Magics vending machine. Shift display name would occasionally not update after renaming. Connect to LAN option would occasionally fail to function in the LAN menu. Players would occasionally not be notified that a player joins or disconnects from a co-op session. In-game mail wasn't showing a preview of the gifted item. A visual bug was occasionally causing currencies to show as 0 when joining another player in co-op. This has happened, and this happened like, I think in our last video, actually. I had, the other day, I had no money, no keys, no orbs, no nothing. I had jack shit. But when I went to go spend it, it went back to normal. And it's all maxed out. So that's how I'm like, okay, I had maxed every fucking thing, but I can't spend anything. And then I go to spend it, and I was able to spend it and get the stuff back. So, yeah. No audio cue when purchasing from vending machines. We added one. Badass brigands would be too scared to say their via voice lines in combat, I guess. Chumberly would occasionally also be too intimidated to say their voice lines in combat, I guess. Droll the Troll would not make a sound while vomiting. Claptrap would occasionally be invisible to some Fate Makers. Custom Waypoint would occasionally not appear in World. Custom Waypoints were occasionally appearing giant and unhelpful on the minimap. Backpack slots would not appear to increase when purchasing a backpack STU. A plus sign would show on stats that have minus symbols. Dragon Lord would prevent his subtitles from appearing in cutscenes. Pineapple barrels? The fuck? Would sometimes not show for all Fate Makers in co-op. Amulets have been painted. They're no longer without textures. So on the console, and we have players in split screen would sometimes control each other's UI. Players would only see an abbreviated item card in the split screen. Scaled down health bar, XP bar, and action skills in 3 and 4 players split screen for better combat visibility. Split screen players were unable to view the visual options menu. These are on Xbox. Audio sometimes desyncing from the animation in the opening cinematic. Players sometimes getting stuck in a sign-in loop. Various telemetry improvements, various audio changes and adjustments, various UI adjustments and improvements, various performance and stability improvements, and more. So the weekly event, this in-game limited time mini event will be active from April 21st to April 28th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Now this is where it gets really cool. They activated the in-game mini event Cosmetics Collector. This increases the chances for cosmetics to drop from bosses, especially head and face gear and armor colors. Don't worry, these drops have no impact on drop rate for other gear. And if you're anything like me and my buddy, this is what we look for. We look for fucking cosmetics. We love cosmetics in these games, and they have a lot. And I'm close to having all of them, but we just got the new DLC, so they just added more. So that's like really cool. I'm glad to see that. The Chaos Chambers feature run has been updated. The leaderboard has been reset. Will you top the charts this week? And this run features Lance and the Frost King. Will let you figure out who the 2 bosses are this week. Get ready to take on the new extended run in the Chaos Chamber. So, change notes. Patch some holes in the rocks of Mount Crawl. Allow Dragonlord's Spectral Wyvern to regen Dragonlord's shield in Chaos Chamber's Endless Dungeon. Ice Spike spell has been adjusted to deal damage to individual targets once per cast, but now shouldn't stop other ice spikes from doing damage. Fixed an issue where Zomboss minions sometimes weren't showing up for the fight. Say class adjustments. Increase the Dreadwind's damage as it scales with higher levels by 28%. Address the UI concern with the Dreadwind melee frequency appearing incorrectly on the HUD. Clawbringer. Increase the damage radius of Cleansing Flames melee damage. Remove the cooldown on the Storm Smite skill. Increase Storm Smite's damage as it scales with higher levels by 50%. Improve targeting for Storm Smite. And remove Storm Smite's delay between the puddle and lightning bolt spawning. And that is it, guys. That was the end of this. So what do you guys think in the comments down below? Are you happy with the changes that they have recently did? And also, if you are playing Wonderlands and you did get the DLC, I will be making content tonight on the DLC that released today. I just wanted to get this hotfix video out there first. I'm sorry if you hear any like engines and shit in the background on this video. It's because I'm not home and there is fucking vehicles every fucking where. So I just want you guys to get this hotfix out there. I want to talk about some things. They did change some things and they put some quality of life stuff in there with the dice and with renaming your character. Some issues that we saw that they are fixing, so that is good. But yeah, guys, wait for more content with me. I will be making content today and tomorrow on the DLC. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye.
Fire will rise behind those eyes. Black house will rock. Lost boy.